Welcome, everyone. Here we are with the Salem News sports writers. Bill Stacy, the executive sports editor, Matt Williams, assistant sports editor, Nick Giannino, and I'm Bill Newell here on MSO News Sports. We are talking on Tuesday afternoon here this week. And gentlemen, let's begin. I read a thing. It was a New England college football thing, but they gave Endicott College a big shout out for one of the biggest wins in Eastern or New England college football. I don't know if I go that far, but it's a pretty big win last Friday night when they beat Hardin-Simmons, the number 5 ranked team in the country, 37-10, kind of in a resounding fashion as far as the score is concerned. And now this week they get ranked themselves at number 21, at least in one of the national polls. And Matt, I know you've been keeping an eye on Endicott College as I have this season, and that's just a huge win for the program. And, you know, rising college programs often have that one kind of milestone win, and this probably is it for Endicott football, which has been moving up the chain, food chain, if you will, the last several years.
Oh, incredible. I mean, and we thought it would come against Ithaca, right?
Yeah.
They kind of let that game get away from them in the fourth quarter, and then they come back and beat the number 5 team, in the nation, which was without its starting quarterback. But still, I mean, not just to beat them, but to beat them, what was it, 37-10 or
Yeah.
37-3 at one time in the game? I mean, that's crazy. The defense over there is just so good. I mean, they allow less than 100 passing yards a game. The team passing efficiency defense is ranked 8th in the country. The scoring defense is 12th in the country. I mean, it's just really incredible. They play complementary offense. They hit hard. They got a million guys over there. I mean, besides St. John's Prep, they're the only team around here that actually gets to use 2 different numbers, right? In college, you can have 2 guys with the same number on the roster, so that gets a little confusing, and not sure why that's allowed in high school, but I guess that's a different conversation. But really, just what Paul McGonagall's been able to do, and Bill, I know you do some great interviews and podcasts with Paul. I would recommend anybody watch him. I mean, he's just a really, really good coach, and a good program builder, just a captivating guy to listen to. And if you listen to him either in person or in Bill's interviews, you can very quickly understand why he's been able to build the culture that he has over there at Endicott.
You know, a lot of times we think of football teams winning games or losing, and it's about, okay, my offense is a little better than your offense, or my defense is just a little bit better than your defense. Here, if you looked at the total yards in that game on Friday night, they weren't all that different. Yes, Endicott had an advantage by 60 yards or something like that, but the difference was special teams. Matt, I know that you probably are very much aware of, and the defense with big plays. You just mentioned the defense, but what was it? 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, I think, in the turnovers, and that's huge. And you know that any Patriots fan knows that when you get your defense gets a turnover, that's huge. And they did 5 of them basically in that game against Hardin-Simmons, and it was a nice night for football. It wasn't like it was a rainy New England, windy nor'easter kind of a night. It was a beautiful night for high school football.
College, yeah. I mean, it was, and you got to imagine that it helps them. Should they win out or perhaps drop a game in conference play, because every week is hard, and you don't want to have letdowns and stuff. But you got to imagine that a win like that helps their case as far as getting into the NCAA tournament. Should it come down to an at-large bid there in November? So just a great thing, and the scenes, the way they document them, it has to help in recruiting. I mean, it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, hey, the Division One, bowl teams in New England are pretty terrible right now. So I think they have like 1 or 2 combined wins. I read on Twitter the other day. So to see some of the D3s doing well, and making sure that the region's not a punchline in college football, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the other thing too, I made this point like the other day to somebody, but their video, if you go on the Endicott College website, want to watch some college football, D3 college football, I think they do the road games, or they're available, maybe different announcers and different things or different quality, but it's a good take college
Mhm.
for D3 college football, and you can go right to their web page, click on the football, go down to schedule, and you'll find it. Sometimes we'll put the link up on our website too for the video if we think of it.
It's
You
really
can't,
cool. No,
you can't do it
when you
all,
go
but
there,
yeah.
you see the kids, the students dressed up in their ties, looking like Frank Gifford or I guess Joe Buck these days. God, I'm aging myself talking about Frank Gifford, but it's just fun. Like when the kids get involved, and it's a whole campus effect. I mean, that's obviously the case in most college sports, but it is nice to see. I mean, even when they played Ithaca, there were students from Ithaca that made the drive down to do the broadcast for the roadside. So it's just it's one of those college things that I think we were probably all involved in when we were in college, and it's fun to see it continue and see kids just getting involved. You don't necessarily have to be a football player or a big jock to like feel like you're part of the program, which is really cool too.
Yeah. Well, there they go. Great. Again, a great story. Great story for our area. And probably people in Texas. There's a few little small towns in Texas now that know where Beverly, Mass is, right?
Mm.
Right, Phil? Yeah. So there you go.
Birthplace
Sure.
of the
Yeah.
Navy, tell them.
Put them on
Yeah.
the map.
Yeah. Navy. What's that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So the Navy beats the cavalry. There you go. All right. Let's go, Phil. Let's talk about some North Shore football. I don't know where you guys are going to be each this weekend, but I know, Nick, you've seen Salem a few times, but I'll just start there. 2-3-0 teams, Salem, and Salem's been beating teams that are nice wins for them. Danvers 15-7 2 weeks ago, and then the Greater Lawrence game 28-0 a week ago on the road on Friday night. Not the easiest place to play. But Salem, what a great story that is this year, and they're hosting Gloucester on Friday night at 6:30.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen them in a couple weeks. I saw their first game
Okay,
win against what was that, Arlington, I believe.
right.
But yeah, we've seen this coming for a couple years now, right? They had a bunch of down years, and Matt Bouchard was hoping to build the program back up, and seems like they're there. At least they're inching closer. 3-0 right now, like you said, Bill, and I think they got weapons on offense. They got a defense that's committed and seems to know what they're doing, and they got a good game plan. All the kids are buying in. They got good numbers. So yeah, they've been a fun team to watch. I don't know. Phil obviously talked about the win over Danvers a couple weeks ago, and then this past week just shutting out in Greater Lawrence. Very impressive for them. So yeah, I think they're going to be a threat in the playoffs. What are they, guys? Division? What are they? Division four,
Six.
6 now. Okay,
Six, yeah.
so definitely going to be a threat there, I would think. And they keep rolling along.
You know, Bill, on the same footnote there, it's been a great rebirth season for Gloucester after having some real down years for them. They've turned it around. They've got 3 straight wins. They're feeling really good. 3 wins all at home, so this will be their first road test of the season. But they're getting some really decent play so far. Caden Souza's looked really good for them. Jalen Severino has played very well for Gloucester. Joe Gucciardi, John Gucciardi have each scored touchdowns. I know the quarterback and kicker, Cameron Whitfeld, has played very well. Chase Goulart's looked good. Trying to think who else. Brady Patton's another guy who's factored in for them. And what they're really doing is holding teams. That their defense has been terrific. They've given up 8 or fewer points in all 3 games. I think they gave up 8 to Somerville, 8 to Weston, and then 6 against St. Bernard's this past week. So they're flying high. They want to be right in that title picture in the NEC Lynch. What's interesting to me is that I think we've talked in past podcasts how Gloucester beat Salem something like, what was it, Willie, like 17 times in a row or something starting in the year 2000, I want to say. It was a lot. I know that.
Yeah, I mean they didn't beat him until 2021, right? So I
21,
don't know if they
right.
played
Right.
every single year, but it was
Yeah,
20. It
Salem
was more than
won the
20
last
years.
2. Yeah, I think it might be actually 18 now that I think about it. It might have been 18 years in a row that Gloucester won that game, but Salem's won the last 2. So for them, for Salem, they want to keep hold serve at home. stay 4-0. For Gloucester, it's clearly their biggest game of the 2023 season to date. They want to show that what's worked for them at home can work on the road as well. It's their first conference game. Of course, Salem has already played one against Danvers. So this is a big game on Friday night for both programs.
Well, it's not,
not to take
technically
anything.
speaking,
Huh?
those crossover games aren't conference games, technically.
Well, but you're playing a Northeastern Conference opponent. And
right, a team you're familiar with. Yeah,
yes,
right, a little bit more juice there, you know.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Nick, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, not only is it a big game for Gloucester and wanting to get that win and prove themselves, but Salem's going to be the best team they've faced so far.
Oh God, yes, yeah, no question.
And you mentioned the Gloucester defense, Salem defense, just 7 points in the last 2 games. That's all they've given up too. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's a great
I think
story.
even in that first game for Salem, Arlington had what, Nick, 20 points, 26 points, but a lot of that was probably against Salem's 2s and 3s.
Against their backups, yep, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, they hung 50 on them in the first half, so it was a lot of backups after that.
It's interesting. There's not a lot of scoring going on out there, you know. I mean,
No, there isn't.
the age of the spread offense and the quarterbacks and all this. I mean, if you take the parochial schools out of it, nobody's really. I mean, Beverly's got 20 points on the season. Marblehead, I don't think has scored a point in the second half all year long, which is a little bit eye-opening for them. Masco's only got 20 points. Of course, they've only played 2 games, but still, I mean, okay, they'd have 30 if they played 3, like big deal. Again, Salem outside the first week hasn't been exactly blowing people away. Danvers, right? I mean, even in their win, they got 14 in regulation, right? So what do they have? 4 touchdowns on the season in regulation? Like, I don't know. Maybe the defenses are ahead of the offenses at this stage, or maybe we're going through a transition. I mean, it seemed like in 2021 and 2022, we were headed for like Big Ten football. They were, 70-point games, 50s, combined 100 points every other week. And it seems like this year, teams are having a lot tougher time putting points on the board. I mean, even Gloucester, Phil, as you mentioned, their 2 last wins were what, 10-7 and 7-6. So they're not exactly lighting up the scoreboard either.
All right, I'm going to jump to how about go ahead.
Danvers has played what 2 14-7 games, and the overtime game the other day was 22-20. So there have been a lot of low scoring games. You're right.
Yeah, it's odd. I don't know if it's I don't know what's causing the trend. Maybe the defenses are catching up, or maybe the timing is just off. But it's just something I noticed. Like, especially if you take Fenwick and St. John's Prep out of the equation. I mean, they're still humming along offensively, but seems like everybody else's offense is kind of, not exactly in mid-season form.
All right. How about Marblehead at Peabody? What about this one here?
Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season that you'd be seeing I think it would have not been surprising to see a team that was undefeated, but to see the other team winless would be shocking. For whatever reason, it is just not clicking for Marblehead this year. And, maybe it's a little bit of the Patriots syndrome. You just expect them to be good. And then, the law of averages dictate that eventually things are going to change. And, maybe this is just one of those years. I mean, I know when Willie and I looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year, we said, geez, if they don't beat Fenwick and they don't beat North Andover, they could be looking at 0-4, based on what they have. And here we are right now. I mean, it's surprising, to be sure. There are athletes on that team. It's just they can't keep up offensively. It seems like their running game has really struggled.
They don't have anyone
passes. I know that. I mean, Nick, what did Colt Wales throw last week? 30 passes, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and he's made some good throws. The receivers have gotten open. I've noticed, particularly in the middle of the field. Maybe sometimes they haven't connected, but they're definitely trying to throw the ball, especially where they're getting down in games. In the second half here, they've been kind of abandoning the run. I don't think they have a guy that's ran over 100 yards on the season yet.
No, and you mentioned the second half. I think that's where they're really getting hammered.
Yeah,
defensively is the second half of all their games. I know they didn't score in the second half against Fenwick opening night. They didn't score against Fee in second half. And did they last week against North Andover?
Or King
They
Philip.
haven't scored in the second. So in the
They
second
haven't scored
half,
at all in the second half.
yeah, they are being outscored 47-0 in the second half. Which is, and again, I mean, so they've given up 70 points in 3 games, which is not, it's not a Marblehead type number, but what's that, 23 points a
It's
game? I
23
mean,
points a game. Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
winnable.
yeah.
And especially if you take take King Philip out of the mix. Cause I mean, I was talking to a couple of coaches around the league and, they all kind of agreed, like you could build an NEC All-Star team and it would probably lose to King Philip the same way Marblehead did. Right. So, I mean, against Fenwick, they gave up 15 points and it was
14,
21
yeah.
against North Andover. So I mean those are winnable numbers. Like, especially in this day and age, we were just talking about the age of offense. Like, I know a lot of old school defensive coaches wouldn't be thrilled with 21, but I mean 21's winnable,
If they were moving the ball and moving the chains and scoring, you wouldn't really look to blame the defense. I think they've
no.
held their own for the most part. They're just on the field a ton.
Yeah.
Because Marblehead can't get first downs.
Nick, that's exactly what I was going to say. That they're on the field so much, and a lot of those guys do go two ways. But when they're expending all their energy trying to prevent the other team from moving the football, it doesn't leave much left when you do get the ball, and it does lead to a lot of 3-and-outs.
Right.
I mean, it's interesting, like you look at their schedule, and I think Fenwick certainly looks like a Super Bowl team. King Philip's been to each of the last 2 Super Bowls. North Andover's okay. I don't think I don't think they're as good as those other 2 teams, but they're a decent Merrimack Valley foe. I mean, I know there was a coach that said this a couple of years ago, and I can't remember who it was, but if they lose this week, like they could be the best 0-4 team in North Shore history. Right? I mean, if they lose and go to 0-4, right? Are they still the odds-on favorite to win the NEC Dun? Because I kind of think they might be, even despite that, right?
I don't know. I mean, I was just going to ask, like, so who's going to emerge out of the NEC Dun this year? I mean, you have Marblehead, you have Danvers, which is 1-2, you have Beverly, which is 0-3, you have Masco, that's 0-2, and you have Swampscott, which is 1-1. So, is there a favorite there? I mean, I would say honestly Danvers, but Danvers is very much dependent on its quarterback and running back / flanker. I want to see other guys get a little more involved there. I want to see the Matevia brothers get used more often in the offense. I want to see Mike Kaspersik get unleashed a little bit and used in that offense. I want to see some guys stepping up and making some big plays defensively. But yeah, the conference is there for the taking for anyone, any one of those teams to do it. I mean, you really can't rule out anybody at this point.
To me, I think I would still make Marblehead the odds-on favorite, but I feel under the radar a little bit of a wild card here is Masconomet, because they are playing really good defense against some pretty good teams. What did I see Bill Ricca beat Central Catholic the other day?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
and I think Masco held them to fewer points than Central did. So I mean, Masco.
And they gave up only 10 the other day, right, to Winchester.
Yeah, like they're somewhat similar to Marblehead in the sense that they're playing really good defense and struggling a little bit on offense with some of their newer players that don't have the varsity experience. So that's an interesting team that I think has been in the weeds a little bit, because let's face it, they played Billerica, they played Winchester. Like that's not, those aren't local teams. Like we're not kind of watching that as much. They had a bye week, right? So like they're kind of in the weeds a little bit. I think they could be dangerous. But I still think, and I just, maybe I'm giving too much credence to the last 15 years, but, you just look at Marblehead and you just feel like these guys are going to find a way to figure it out. I mean, they have athletes that play other sports. They have athletes that win in other sports. If I'm Peabody, the last thing I wanted was for Marblehead to lose that game last week. I know there were some guys that were probably rooting on Marblehead to beat North Andover, because the last thing you want is a team like that coming into your place 0-3, right? I mean, because they're going to be desperate. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. They're going to be able to say nobody believes in us. That is like a trap game like you read about.
And after getting spanked last year by Peabody at home.
Right, and they played each
Yeah.
other in the 7-on-7 too. So that's like really a developing rivalry. I mean, Peabody didn't play great in their win against Beverly. I mean, their defense was suffocating, outstanding. Their offense wasn't great. So I mean, in that sense, maybe that's a good thing for them. Maybe that gets their attention and make sure that they have a good week of practice this week. Because I still just like, an 0-4 Marblehead team scares me if I'm Peabody. That's like the last thing I want coming in.
Yeah.
I expect a low scoring game. The underlying numbers would seem to indicate Marblehead's going to have a really hard time running the ball. I don't think Peabody's corners have been tested yet. They were tested a little bit against Lynn Classical, but the pass rush was really able to disrupt things in the second half. I mean, the first half, their outside corner struggled a little bit against Classical. So I can imagine that, Marblehead's going to try to throw the ball. They're going to have to. And, then it's going to become a battle of can Peabody, put together offensive drives. I mean, they struggled a little bit offensively against Beverly. I know that, Coach Hutton and Coach Rudloff may or may not have been together for 5 minutes on Dan Bauer's staff 100 years ago, and they may have similar defensive concepts, defensive philosophies, right? So, I just Peabody's going to have to find some answers on offense and hope to get those timely scores. But it just like it does not on paper look to me like a game between a 3-0 team and an 0-3 team. I think like that's crazy to me that it's turned out that way.
Yeah. I think you're
game
about
Go
Marblehead
ahead,
too moving forward. Yeah, Phil, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that Beverly Masco game is also a big game for both of those programs.
Absolutely.
We touched on Masco a little bit with how well they've been playing defensively. I mean, they need to get on track offensively. In fact, you have two teams here that are having real trouble moving the ball on the ground. And I look at this Masconomet team, and while I haven't seen them in person yet, I know they have athletes and Ryan Goncalves and Robbie Engel. It seems like their new quarterback can throw the ball a little bit. Ashwin Prasad. Engel's a pass catcher. Chris McCarthy can catch passes. Lucas Magnifico, Devin O'Brien, all those guys can get involved in the offense. So they're hoping to get on track at home against a Beverly team that has really just hit some bad luck. Their problem isn't so much giving up points in the second half. That's kind of spread out. They've just been behind in every game. I mean, they've scored 7 points in the first half this year and only 20 points all season. With 2/3 of those coming on opening day against Haverhill. So Beverly has to find a way to get on track. Now, they too have not had a great time running the ball. I mean, they have the senior captain, Brendan McCarron. He's more of a big plowback to me. I mean, he's a big bruising between the tackles guy, but you need a change of pace to go with him. Maybe the answer there is Sean Costa, the speedy sophomore. Get him working the ball to the outside a little bit. Maybe it's another captain, Danny Conant, trying to get him the ball in space at times. Maybe it's getting Kevin Hubbard involved. I don't know. Willie, you mentioned this when you saw him last week on the defensive side of the ball, but I think Jack Constantine can be a real animal for them on both sides of the ball, as a defensive end and as a tight end. Maybe try to find a way to get him the ball a little bit and see what he can get for yards after the catch. There's got to be a way for them to open things up here a little bit offensively, or at least you would hope that they could with the players that they have. From my perspective with Beverly, and I've only seen them the one time, but I think the offensive line has to do a much better job protecting their quarterback to give him time when they want to throw the ball and to open up those holes when they're looking to run plays.
Guys, I want to just jump. I think we got to get to a couple of other sports here. I'm looking at the clock, but I just wanted to mention, we talked about Danvers earlier, but they're hosting Winthrop, a team that I saw last Friday night, beat Swampscott down 14-0. They come back to win 21-14. I saw Winthrop as well against Winthrop St. Mary's the week before. And it was a very good Winthrop team, I thought, on Friday night in Swampscott. Now they're playing Danvers, so that should be a great game. I mean, there's some great games this weekend.
Plus St. Mary's Bishop Fenwick, I think, 2 undefeated teams going against each
No,
other
St.
too?
Mary's lost. St. Mary's lost last week, so that's right.
Being
And they're
Oh, that's
very,
right. They lost to Fian. Okay, yeah, okay.
yeah. So they're very
My
young.
mistake.
The other game I just wanted to highlight quickly would be Swampscott, as you mentioned, Phil, 1-1-1, but they lost to Winthrop last week. They're at Saugus. Saugus 3-0. Their last win was last weekend against Lynn Tech. I saw Saugus, and that'll be a great game itself too, down in Saugus on Friday night. That's a 7 o'clock kickoff. Swampscott at Saugus. So these are some tough ones here to kind of figure out. And yeah, so I just wanted to touch on that. Maybe we should jump to some other sports. But if there's any other final thought on football, feel free to chime in.
Well, Pingree got an opening win, right?
Yes.
At Portsmouth Abbey, 28-0, and all 4 touchdowns. Hudson Weidman to Jalen Richardson. So they're off to a fast start. I know Willie did that feature on Chris Colby, who's another really skilled player for the Highlanders. I think he had 3 receptions, but yeah, that duo there, four touchdowns, and they shut out Portsmouth Abbey. So good start for the Highlanders.
And St. John's Prep going out of state this week to play LaSalle Academy down in Rhode Island. So you figure that'll be a test for St. John's?
Yeah, that'll be a big test for them. I guess they're like the competing for state titles in Rhode Island all the time.
Yeah,
so
they're the major demos down in the ocean.
Yeah.
State, so
yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. I blanked on that one too as we were talking about them. All right. And that's a Saturday afternoon game. So
yeah, it looks like that's looks like LaSalle has already lost to BC High and St. John Shrewsbury. So I'm gonna go Eagles big in that one.
I'm listening. Okay. Nick, what do you got for golf here? You have a golf note or two for us, right?
Yeah, sure. I thought this might be breaking news on the podcast, but Phil beat me to the punch. I was off yesterday, and he took over for the little golf coverage here. But St. John's Prep won the, what is it called? The annual 7th annual Cape Cod National Golf Club High School Invitational. So they've been competing in this for a few years now. They've won it. This is their 3rd win. It's an invitational tournament, like I mentioned. So only the top programs really in the state get invited. So that was a big win for the Eagles. They edged out Hingham High School by 1 shot. Terry Manning had a 2 over par. He's one of their captains, senior captain for the Eagles. 2 over par 74 to lead the way. We had freshman Seamus O'Halloran shoot a 78, and sophomore Jack Caro had a 79. Junior Brian Laughlin was the last guy to get his score counted there with an 83. So great win for them. I know it was pretty terrible weather down on the Cape in Brewster, a lot of wind, some rain. So those were pretty impressive scores for them. And St. John's Prep is, I believe, 6-1 on the season. They just won another match yesterday. And looking at their scores, they're having 6, 7, 8 guys all break 40 for 9 holes pretty much every match. So they're going to be a threat to contend for another state championship in Division I this fall.
Bill, I know you're in tune with the field hockey scene this year, and as we speak, there's a pretty big game going on this afternoon in Gloucester, right?
There's a couple of big games today. You got Swampscott at Masco up on the turf in Boxford. Swampscott is still undefeated. Masco with a couple of losses, but a win today gets them right back in that Northeastern Conference title chase. And yeah, as you mentioned, Danvers at Gloucester. Danvers coming in at 6-0. Gloucester's 5-1 with 5 straight wins. Really potent offense. Should be a terrific game today against contrasting styles and like I said, Gloucester has a really lethal offense. A lot of high-powered scoring with Ella Costa and Abby Lowthers, and so on and so forth, where Danvers kind of counters. It's a little more spread out with Bobby Serino and Gabby Griffin Fetch and Maddie Chase and things like that. So looking forward to a really good game this afternoon.
As we speak on Tuesday afternoon. Matt, do you have anything from any of the other sports to drop in with us here? Drop in?
Well, I know soccer-wise, we've had some interesting results. Danvers is certainly scoring a lot. Georgia Prouty's got 24 points. She's a runaway leader in the area points. certainly a threat to break some records there. Hamilton Wenham continues its undefeated run there in the Cal. They're a state title threat with a lot of dangerous players there, the Generals, and I think trying to think of the other sports. I know cross country wise, Danvers had a pretty good showing down at the Ocean State
Yeah, that's right.
Invitational over the weekend. That was nice to see for those guys. Beverly won one of the small invitationals or one of the age groups. I forget exactly what the criterion were, but the boys from the Garden City having a nice showing there. And I'm trying to think what other sports we haven't touched on volleyball wise. Ipswich
Peavy with
continues
that
to
nice win
roll
over
along.
Danvers last week.
Yeah, Peabody undefeated in the NEC and have a couple tough, nice non-league victories under their belt too over MVC and Cal teams. So they should do well in the power rankings. And Ipswich continues to roll along the defending champs. Peabody and Ipswich might be playing each other at some point in the next several weeks. That would be a really interesting matchup. I want to say they played last year and Ipswich won a 5-setter. That was a really good game. I might be like making that up, but I feel like that happened.
Well,
If
thanks
it
for making
didn't,
that up. I think that added a
yeah,
lot. Yeah.
if it didn't, it sounds good, right? So, but it's just great to see, the teams playing each other. I mean, it's really nice that the Cal is such a strong league for volleyball, and that the divisions don't matter. We should shout out Essex Tech volleyball as well. That's a team that seems to have made a smooth transition to the Cal. Some of their other programs are struggling. Field hockey's doing well. We touched on that last week, but Essex Tech volleyball is like right there. And I think they'll be much better for having played teams like Ipswich and Newburyport when they get to tournament time. So they're doing really well. I know like Christine Mbachi and Alyssa Richards, they're as good as anybody around. I mean, Mbachi spikes the ball like crazy, and Richards can pass it really well. So nice to see the Hawks, kind of representing the blue and green over there in the Cal, shall we say.
No PVD on the Ipswich schedule, Willie, but Ipswich is playing Marblehead, Beverly, and Tewksbury out of conference.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice work. All right. Hey,
speaking real quick, Willie, you mentioned the power rankings. I got to guess that maybe we're going to see those for the first time next Tuesday. That might be my guess. We'd be 4 weeks into the football season. We'd be just about halfway through the fall season and regular season, and the soccers and the field hockeys and the volleyball. So that would be my guess that we'll probably see those this time next week.
Yeah, looks like Friday. The MIAA has just posted on X that Mr. Clark is working on the formula. They got a nice little photo here.
Well, there you go.
At the blackboard. So
He's ahead of me.
Their ears were burning as you were speaking, I think.
This Friday or next Friday?
I suppose there's a nugget of truth there.
Let's see. It says, reminder, the power rankings are coming out this Friday. Jim Clark is finalizing the formula today.
All right.
Well, if you go by
in his laboratory in the Clark Dome.
That's right. Yeah. I'm sure he still has a Sega in there too.
Yes, very may. Yes, playing NHL '93.
I'm gonna take the final 2 minutes here. Well, we got about 2 minutes left, let's say. And is there a worse Patriots win than the one Sunday? Was that bad? Was that one of the dullest games? Come on,
Stressful.
Wasn't good.
It was stressful.
Yeah. I mean, they almost lost it too. I mean, with that Hail Mary right at the end, that could have gone. That was very close to being a touchdown for sure. But I don't know.
The funny thing is, the defender played it right. He batted it down like forward.
Yeah.
That was the ironic part of it. I mean, he played it right. Just
yeah.
They
well, when you fall down on the turf, maybe that's a great strategy for a Hail Mary. Just fall down.
I'm not somebody who's going to bash Bill O'Brien. He's brought in to fix the offense. He's doing what he can, but you can't ask someone to make a cake if instead of flour and water, you give them lug nuts and dandelions. You can't do it. I mean, this offense stinks. Aside from Andre Stevenson, No, really, they stink. Like, who are
And
you worried
Stevenson hasn't
about?
even been doing anything.
Who are you worried about catching the ball on the Patriots? If you're a defensive coordinator and you're game planning against the Patriots, who are you worried about beating you in deep coverage or one-on-one? I mean, I'd be putting
I
me in
think
the box every play against this team.
I think Douglas is probably their most capable guy with the burst of speed and some moves there, and he's not a guy that's going to catch a lot of passes. So if you only have to worry about Douglas, yeah, you got some more issues to
I
worry
mean, Bourne
about.
should be able to do something. He's not consistent. Tyquan Thornton, if you were healthy, I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster seems like a bust.
Should have just kept. Should have just kept
Parker,
Myers.
it's just yeah, they are what they are, and they stink. At least
Yeah.
offensively, they stink.
Well, they did make some plays, so I can't be too down on them too much. Let's see what happens. We've got another week. Go to Dallas. We'll see what happens there. But Phil, thanks so much for sharing lug nuts and dandelions with us this week. I did not expect those. Those were not
Print
on
up
the list
the
of
t-shirts,
winning
lug nuts
words
and
here today.
dandelions.
Yeah, we had.
Pretty good.
Sorry,
Pretty good. Could sell that.
the
Be the
winning
name of our team this year, Willie, in the race.
It could be.
the winning word was end zone. By the way, that did not come up in the podcast today, but lug nuts and dandelions did. So we'll try again next week, guys. But
All right.
thanks again, and we will talk again soon.